In the vast expanse of space, where stars glitter like scattered diamonds and planets float endlessly in the cosmic void, unexpected encounters can alter destinies in ways unimaginable. It was under such celestial circumstances that Emma Blackwell found herself on a small, unassuming ship, the Nomad, drifting into orbit around Proxima 3, a dusty, backwater planet nestled at the outer rim of Alliance territory. Her muscles still ache from her last job, a simple extraction mission that had spiraled into chaos with local militia. The black combat armor she wore bore scorch marks, testament to the firefight she'd survived, but its reinforced plates had done their job, protecting her flesh. As the hum of the ship filled the cabin, a monotone voice interrupted her thoughts. Fuel reserves at 18%. Recommend immediate refueling. Emma muttered a reply, running her hand through her short, dark hair. No kidding, she said aloud, scanning the navigation system for the nearest station that wouldn't pry too deeply into her business. The NAV system pinged, highlighting a small outpost on the northern continent. Grimacing at the readout, Emma realized it was little more than a glorified gas station in the middle of nowhere. But beggars couldn't be choosers. Her current mission could wait a few hours. The descent was rough, atmospheric turbulence buffeting her small craft as it cut through the planet's thin atmosphere. Dust storms swirled across the barren landscape, obscuring her view until the last moment when the outpost finally appeared, a squat, utilitarian structure with a handful of landing pads and fuel tanks. As Emma stepped out of her ship, the dry heat hit her like a physical blow. She adjusted the straps on her armored vest, leaving her muscular arms exposed to the harsh elements. Up close, the outpost looked even more pathetic, a prefab structure with peeling paint and flickering hollow signs advertising various fuels and supplies. Inside, the air was mercifully cooler. A few rough-looking aliens lounged about, nursing drinks and eyeing her suspiciously. Humans were rare in this sector, and armed humans even rarer. Emma ignored their stares, making her way to the counter where a small figure stood with her back to her. "I need a full tank of Grade A reactor fuel," she said, tossing her credit chip onto the counter. "And make it quick." The figure turned, and Emma found herself staring into the most striking eyes she'd ever seen, large and expressive, set in a delicate face with skin the color of burnished copper. The alien girl, for she was clearly young by her species standards, had a slender build and fiery red hair that cascaded down her back in waves. "Yes, ma'am," she stammered, her melodic voice betraying her obvious nervousness. "Right away." As she moved to process the payment, Emma noticed the metallic bracelets encircling her wrists. They looked technological in nature, with small blinking lights and intricate patterns etched into their surface. Her jaw tightened. She'd seen similar devices before on worlds where slavery was still practiced despite Alliance prohibitions. The girl caught her staring and quickly pulled her sleeves down to cover the bracelets, her cheeks flushing a deeper scarlet. "Your fuel will be ready in 20 minutes, she said, avoiding Emma's gaze. "Would you like anything else while you wait?" Emma watched as the girl served another customer, her movements graceful but hesitant. Every few moments, her eyes would dart to a burly alien in the corner who seemed to be watching her intently. Pieces clicked together in Emma's mind. This girl was being held against her will, forced to work in this backwater hellhole. Having witnessed enough injustice in her travels, sometimes instinct drove action. When the girl returned to the counter, Emma leaned forward and whispered, "Those bracelets, they're control devices, aren't they?" Her eyes widened in alarm. "No, they're not," she began, but Emma cut her off. "I can help you." Before the girl could protest further, Emma reached across the counter and grabbed her wrist. With her other hand, she activated the small laser cutter built into her glove. The beam sliced through the first bracelet with ease, and it fell to the floor with a clatter. "What are you doing?" the girl gasped, but Emma was already cutting through the second bracelet. "Setting you free," she said as the second bracelet joined the first on the floor. Straightening up, a satisfied smile played on her lips. "You can run now. I'll cover your escape." Instead of the gratitude she expected, the girl's expression crumpled. Her lower lip trembled, and to Emma's horror, tears began to stream down her face. "Why did you do that?" she whispered, one hand clutching at her chest as she stared at Emma with a mixture of despair and embarrassment. "I wasn't a slave. Those bracelets indicated that I was preserving my purity until marriage, and now no one will want me as a wife." Emma felt the blood drain from her face as the implications hit her. "What? Now you're obligated to marry me," the girl cried, drawing the attention of everyone in the outpost. "It's our way. By removing my purity bracelets, you've claimed me as your own." The burly alien in the corner stood up, his multiple eyes narrowing as he approached the counter. "What's going on here, Elixa?" Emma's hand instinctively moved to the blaster at her hip. "This is a misunderstanding," she began, but the girl, Elixa, was already explaining through her tears. "She cut off my bracelets, Uncle Krell. She's claimed me." Uncle Krell's expression shifted from suspicion to something that looked disturbingly like satisfaction. Well, he rumbled. "Looks like we've got a wedding to arrange." Emma Blackwell, veteran of a dozen interstellar conflicts and feared bounty hunter across 3 systems, found herself completely speechless as the reality of her situation sank in. Marriage was the last thing she had anticipated when making a quick refueling stop on a random alien planet. Emma's mind raced through a dozen escape scenarios, each one ending with her back on her ship and far from this dusty outpost. Yet, as she stood there, the gravity of what she had inadvertently done weighed heavily upon her. The word marriage felt foreign on her tongue, an unwelcome intrusion into her life of freedom and solitude. Uncle Krell's multiple eyes blinked in unison as his mouth stretched into what might have been a smile. "The Proximan tradition is clear," he rumbled. "You've removed her purity bracelets, you've claimed her." Elixa stood with her head bowed, tears still streaming down her scarlet cheeks. The sight made something twist uncomfortably in Emma's chest. She lowered her voice, adopting her most diplomatic tone. "Look," she said, "I meant no disrespect to your customs. Where I come from, bracelets like those are used to control people against their will. I thought I was helping." Krell's expression hardened. "Helping? By making my niece unmarriageable to any respectable Proximan male?" Emma glanced at Elixa, who was now staring at her bare wrists with a mixture of sadness and resignation. The other patrons of the outpost had gathered around, watching the drama unfold with undisguised interest. "Perhaps we could discuss this privately," Emma suggested, suddenly aware of their audience. Krell nodded, gesturing toward a door behind the counter. Inside the cramped room that served as both office and storage space, Emma found herself facing Krell across a desk cluttered with invoices and spare parts. Elixa stood to the side, her eyes downcast. "I'm willing to offer compensation," Emma began, reaching for her credit chip. "Whatever you think is fair for the inconvenience." Krell's expression hardened further. "You think you can buy your way out of this? My niece's future is worth more than credits." "I didn't mean to imply." Emma trailed off, unsure how to proceed. "On Proxima, the bracelets are sacred," Elixa interrupted softly. "They represent a promise. Now that promise is broken, and only marriage can restore my honor." Emma studied her face. Despite her tears, there was a quiet dignity in her posture. This wasn't a ploy, it was genuinely important to her. How long would the marriage need to last? Emma asked cautiously, knowing she had obligations elsewhere, dangerous ones. Krell and Elixa exchanged glances. "Traditionally, 1 full cycle of our moon," Krell said. 38 standard Earth days. Emma did some quick mental calculations. Her current contract had a flexible timeline, and she was due for some downtime anyway. 38 days wasn't ideal, but it wasn't impossible either. "And after that?" she pressed. "After that, you may petition for dissolution if you wish," Krell explained, "though it would be unusual." Emma looked at Elixa again. In the dim light of the office, her scarlet skin seemed to glow from within. Her fiery hair framed a face that was undeniably beautiful by any species standards. Something stirred within Emma, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time. What if I were to temporarily accept this arrangement? Emma began, surprising herself with her next words. To honor your customs while we figure out a more permanent solution? Elixa's head snapped up, her large eyes widening in surprise. You would do that? It seems like the honorable thing to do, Emma replied, wondering if she'd lost her mind. I caused this situation. I should take responsibility. A small smile appeared on Elixa's face, transforming her features. Thank you, she whispered. Krell looked between them, his expression unreadable. And the ceremony must be performed by the village elder. We can arrange it for tomorrow. Tomorrow? Emma felt a surge of panic. That's so soon. Do you have somewhere else to be? Krell challenged her with a raised eyebrow. Emma thought about her ship, about the open stars, about the freedom she'd always cherished. Then she looked at Elixa, at the hope blooming in her eyes. No, she said finally. Tomorrow is fine. After finalizing the details with Krell, Emma found herself being led through the outpost by Elixa. The other patrons nodded respectfully as they passed, news of their impending union having spread quickly. This is our guest quarter, Elixa said, opening a door to reveal a small but clean room. You can stay here tonight. Emma stepped inside, noticing the single bed with its colorful woven blanket. And you? She asked. I have my own quarters, Elixa replied, a flush darkening her scarlet skin. Until tomorrow. As Elixa turned to leave, Emma caught her hand. The touch sent an unexpected jolt through her, like a mild electric current. Elixa, she said, I want you to know that I'll respect your customs. This arrangement, it doesn't have to be anything you're not comfortable with. Elixa looked up at her, her eyes searching Emma's face. And what if I am comfortable with it, with you? The question hung in the air between them, charged with meaning. Emma became acutely aware of her proximity, of the warmth radiating from her skin, of the subtle sweet scent that reminded her of desert flowers after rain. Then we'll figure it out together, Emma said, her voice rougher than she intended. A small smile played at the corners of Elixa's mouth. Humans are strange, she said. On my world, a man would be celebrating such a fortunate match. Is that so? Emma found herself smiling back. Yes, I am considered quite desirable among my people, Elixa admitted, a hint of pride in her voice, a glimpse of personality beyond the shy exterior. I can see why, Emma replied honestly. Elixa's smile widened, revealing teeth that were surprisingly similar to human ones. Rest well, Emma Blackwell. Tomorrow, you become my husband. With that, she slipped from Emma's grasp and was gone, leaving her alone with her thoughts and an unexpected flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with panic and everything to do with the way Elixa's eyes had lit up when she smiled. Under the mesmerizing glow of twin moons, the Proximan wedding ceremony unfolded in a manner that Emma had never imagined. Standing beneath the celestial spectacle, she watched as Elixa approached, adorned in a flowing garment the color of a sunset. Her fiery hair, now embellished with luminescent stones, sparkled with every step, creating an ethereal aura reminiscent of a queen. The village elder, a venerable Proximan whose faded pink skin spoke of countless years, conducted the ceremony in an ancient tongue. Uncle Krell stood nearby, translating in hushed tones. She asks that you join hands, Krell instructed. Emma extended her hand, and Elixa placed hers, smaller and warmer than Emma expected, into Emma's palm. The elder then wrapped a cord of intricately woven metal around their joined hands, not binding them tightly but symbolically connecting them. Now she will ask if you accept the bond, Krell continued. You must answer truthfully, the metal will heat if you lie. Emma raised an eyebrow but nodded. The elder spoke, her voice strong and resonant despite her apparent age. She asked if Emma accepted Elixa as her bondmate to protect and honor until the cycle was complete. Emma looked deep into Elixa's eyes, which reflected the twin moons above, and with sincere conviction, she responded, "I do." The metal cord remained cool, signifying the truth of her words. The elder then turned to Elixa, asking her the same question. Elixa's response came swiftly and clearly, her voice unwavering. Again, the cord stayed cool around their hands. "It is done," Krell announced as the elder gently unwound the cord. "You are now joined under Proximan law." The small gathering erupted in cheers, and Emma found herself swept up in a celebration unlike any she had experienced before. The Proximans danced in circular patterns, their movements fluid and hypnotic. Food and drink flowed freely, the latter having an effect on Emma that was both pleasant and disorienting. "It's fermented cactus nectar," Elixa explained, appearing at Emma's side with a smile. "Humans usually find it potent." "I've had stronger," Emma boasted, though her head was already swimming pleasantly. On Titan, they brewed something that could strip paint off a starship hull. Elixa laughed, a musical sound that made several nearby Proximans turn and smile approvingly. "You must tell me more about your travels," she said. "I've never left the system." "Never?" Emma was genuinely surprised. "But you work at an interstellar refueling station." "And that's how I know there's more out there," Elixa replied, a wistful note in her voice. "I hear stories from travelers, but I've never seen the stars up close." Emma found herself studying Elixa's face, noting the genuine longing in her expression. "Maybe someday you will," she said softly. As the celebration continued, Emma noticed how other Proximans treated Elixa differently now, with newfound respect. Gone was the shy girl from the outpost counter, replaced by a woman who carried herself with quiet confidence. "They see you differently now," Emma observed as they shared a moment alone near the edge of the gathering. "They see us differently," Elixa corrected, her skin darkening in what Emma now recognized as a blush. Especially a human husband. Your kind are known for strength and courage, it's admired." Emma felt an unexpected surge of pride at her words. "And what do you think of humans?" she asked, stepping closer. Elixa's eyes met hers, unguarded for the first time since they'd met. "I think they're fascinating," she said. "So warm yet so cool to the touch, so impulsive yet capable of such honor." Her hand reached up hesitantly, then with more confidence, as she traced the line of Emma's jaw. "Your skin is different from ours, rougher. I like it." The touch sent a current through Emma that had nothing to do with the fermented cactus nectar. She caught Elixa's hand in hers, turning it over to examine the wrist where her bracelet had been. A faint mark remained, not a scar, but a slight difference in the texture of her skin. "Do you regret it?" Emma asked quietly. "What I did?" Elixa's gaze was steady. "No," she said simply. "It was meant to be." Later, as the moons reached their zenith, Krell approached them. "It is time for you to retire," he announced with what Emma could have sworn was a knowing smirk. "Your dwelling has been prepared." The dwelling turned out to be a small but comfortable structure on the outskirts of the village, far enough for privacy but close enough to be part of the community. Inside, Emma found her few belongings had been moved from the outpost along with what appeared to be wedding gifts, practical items for a new household. "This is, nice," Emma said, genuinely surprised by the thoughtfulness. Elixa stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the moonlight. "It's traditional for newly bonded couples to have their own space," she explained. "Uncle Krell arranged it." As she stepped inside and closed the door behind her, the air between them seemed to change, becoming charged with possibility. Elixa moved about the space, lighting small lamps that cast a warm glow over the simple furnishings. "On Proxima," she said softly, her back to Emma as she adjusted one of the lamps, "the wedding night is sacred. It's when two become truly bonded." Emma swallowed hard, suddenly very aware of the single sleeping pallet in the center of the room. "Elixa," she began, "I meant what I said earlier. This doesn't have to be anything you're not comfortable with." Elixa turned to face her, and the look in her eyes made Emma's breath catch. "What makes you think I'm not comfortable?" she asked, moving toward Emma with a grace that seemed almost feline. "I chose to accept you as my husband, Emma Blackwell. All of you." As she reached Emma, her hands came to rest on Emma's chest, the heat of her touch penetrating even through her shirt. "Among my people, this is natural," she whispered, referring to the joining of bodies after the joining of hands. Emma felt her resistance melting away as Elixa rose on her toes, bringing her face closer. "Then show me," Emma murmured. "How your people do it." Elixa's smile was radiant as she took Emma's hand and led her toward the sleeping pallet. The twin moons cast their silver light through the small window as two worlds came together in the most ancient of dances. Emma woke to unfamiliar warmth against her side, the morning light filtering through the dwelling's small window casting soft patterns across the room. Opening her eyes, she found Elixa curled against her, her scarlet skin glowing softly in the gentle illumination. Her fiery hair spilled across Emma's chest, and her breathing was deep and even. For a moment, Emma simply watched her sleep, marveling at how quickly her life had changed. Just a week ago, she had been alone on her ship, focused solely on her next contract. Now, she was a married woman, temporarily, she reminded herself, sharing a home with a woman from another species. Elixa stirred, her eyes fluttering open. When she saw Emma watching her, a smile spread across her face. "Good morning, husband," she murmured, stretching in a way that made Emma's pulse quicken. "Morning," Emma replied, surprised by the contentment in her own voice. "Sleep well?" "Better than ever," Elixa said, her tone suggesting more than just rest. "Humans generate so much heat, it's pleasant." Emma chuckled. "Glad to be of service." Their morning routine quickly established itself over the next few days. Elixa would rise first, preparing a breakfast of local fruits and grains while Emma checked her communications and equipment. They would eat together, sharing stories, hers of distant worlds and adventures, Elixa's of Proximan customs and beliefs. "So the bracelets?" Emma asked one morning as they shared a meal. "They had been technological, not just symbolic," Elixa explained, sipping a steaming beverage that smelled like cinnamon but tasted like mint. "They monitored vital signs and hormonal changes. When a young Proximan reached maturity, they received the bracelets in a ceremony. The bracelets remained until marriage, helping to maintain purity." "How exactly?" Emma asked, genuinely curious. Elixa's skin darkened with a blush. If the wearer became too excited, they emitted a mild sonic pulse, nothing painful, just discouraging. Emma nearly choked on her food. "So they're like chastity devices, in a way?" Elixa admitted they were, though more for guidance than enforcement. They were also status symbols, showing one's commitment to tradition. "And I just cut them off," Emma said, shaking her head. "No wonder you were upset." "I was shocked," Elixa corrected, reaching across to touch Emma's hand. "But now I'm grateful. Without your impulsive action, we would never have met properly." The casual intimacy of her touch still surprised Emma, but pleasantly so. Each day, the boundaries between them dissolved a little more. On the 5th day of their marriage, Emma received an encrypted message on her communicator. A job not far from Proxima 3 but requiring immediate attention. "I need to go," she told Elixa as she returned from the village market, her arms full of local produce. "Just for a day or two. It's a simple retrieval mission." Elixa's expression fell, but she nodded. "Of course. Your work is important." Emma hesitated, then made a decision that surprised even herself. "Would you like to come with me?" Elixa's eyes widened. "To space? On your ship?" "It's not much, but it's fast and well-equipped," Emma said. "The job isn't dangerous, just retrieving a package from an abandoned research station. You could see the stars up close, like you wanted." The joy that spread across Elixa's face was answer enough. "Yes. When do we leave? As soon as you're packed, Emma replied, finding herself grinning at her enthusiasm. 2 hours later, they were aboard the Nomad, preparing for launch. Emma watched with amusement as Alexa explored the compact vessel, running her hands over the control panels and peering out the viewports with childlike wonder. It's smaller than I imagined, she admitted, but also more impressive. Wait until you see it in action, Emma said, gesturing for her to take the co-pilot seat. Strap in. Takeoff can be a bit rough. As the engines roared to life and the ship lifted from the dusty surface of Proxima 3, Emma stole glances at Alexa. Her face was a picture of pure awe, her eyes wide as the ground fell away and the atmosphere thinned, revealing the star-studded blackness of space. It's beautiful, she whispered, reaching instinctively for Emma's hand as the planet became a shrinking sphere below them. I never imagined. This is just the beginning, Emma promised, squeezing her fingers gently. Wait until you see a nebula up close or a binary star system at sunrise. Once they were safely in orbit, Emma set the autopilot and unstrapped from her seat. Want the full tour? Alexa nodded eagerly, following Emma through the ship's compact interior. Emma showed her the cargo hold, the small galley, the weapons locker, which earned her a raised eyebrow, and finally the captain's quarters. This is where I sleep, she explained, suddenly aware of how personal the space was. Her few possessions were scattered about, a rare book from Earth, a carved figurine from Centauri Prime, a vintage blaster mounted on the wall. Alexa moved around the room, touching each item with reverence. These tell your story, she said softly. Each one is a memory. I've never thought of it that way, Emma admitted, watching as Alexa examined a holophoto of her old military unit. You were a soldier? She asked, studying the image. Alliance Marines, Emma confirmed. 8 years, then I went private. And now you retrieve packages from abandoned stations? Alexa teased. Emma laughed. Among other things. The pay is good, and I answer to no one but myself. And now to your wife, Alexa added, setting down the holophoto and moving toward Emma with that same feline grace she'd come to appreciate. Is that so? Emma's voice dropped lower as Alexa approached. She hummed, placing her hands on Emma's chest. On Proxima, a husband and wife share everything, including quarters. Emma caught her hands, bringing them to her lips. I think I can adapt to that custom. Later, as they lay together in Emma's bunk, the stars streaming past the small viewport above them, Emma found herself thinking about the strange twist of fate that had brought them together. What had begun as a misunderstanding had evolved into something she couldn't have anticipated, a connection that transcended their different worlds. What are you thinking about? Alexa asked, her head resting on Emma's chest. How different space looks when you're not alone, Emma answered truthfully. Alexa's smile was like a sunrise. Show me more, she whispered. Show me everything. And as the Nomad carried them toward their destination, Emma realized she wanted nothing more than to do exactly that. The abandoned research station orbited a small, barren moon at the edge of the Proximan system, its dormant appearance belying the secrets it held. From a distance, it appeared lifeless, a dark cylindrical structure punctuated by occasional blinking lights indicating minimal life support systems were still operational. That's our target, Emma said, pointing to the holographic display. Supposedly evacuated 3 months ago when funding was cut. Our job is simple, retrieve a data core from the central lab and deliver it to my client. Alexa studied the rotating image with interest. What was the research? The brief didn't specify, Emma admitted, but the pay is good, and the station is officially decommissioned. I should be in and out in an hour. As they approached, Emma guided the Nomad into a docking pattern, her movements precise and practiced. Alexa watched her hands move across the controls with fascination. You make it look so effortless, she remarked. Emma smiled. Years of practice. Want to try? Alexa's eyes widened. May I pilot your ship? Just the final approach, Emma replied. I'll talk you through it. With gentle guidance, Emma positioned Alixa's hands on the controls, standing behind her seat with her arms around her. The intimate position wasn't lost on either of them, and Emma found herself distracted by the scent of Alixa's hair and the warmth of her body against hers. Easy now, she murmured, her lips close to Alixa's ear. Just ease it forward, that's it. Under their combined guidance, the Nomad glided smoothly into the docking bay. The magnetic clamps engaged with a satisfying thunk, securing the ship to the station. I did it! Alixa exclaimed, turning in her seat with a radiant smile that made Emma's heart skip. Natural talent, Emma confirmed, reluctantly stepping back. Now let's gear up. Even abandoned stations can have surprises. In the cargo hold, Emma opened a storage locker and removed 2 environmental suits. These will protect against radiation, vacuum, and most toxins, she explained, handing one to Alixa. The station should still have atmosphere, but better safe than sorry. Alixa examined the suit with curiosity. It looks too small for me. It's adaptive material, Emma explained. It'll conform to your body once you put it on. She demonstrated, stepping into her suit and sealing it up to her neck. The material shimmered briefly before adjusting to her muscular frame. Alixa followed her example, though she needed help with some of the seals at the back. How does it feel? Emma asked, her hands lingering perhaps longer than necessary on Alixa's shoulders. Strange, Alixa admitted, but not uncomfortable. It's like a second skin. That's the idea, Emma replied, retrieving 2 helmets and a compact pulse rifle for herself. Stay close to me once we're inside. If anything feels wrong, tell me immediately. The airlock cycled, and they stepped into the dimly lit corridor of the research station. Emergency lighting cast everything in an eerie blue glow, their footsteps echoing in the silence. It feels empty, Alixa whispered, her voice slightly distorted through the helmet's comm system. That's good, Emma replied, checking her handheld scanner. Central lab should be 2 levels down. They moved through the station cautiously, most doors open, revealing abandoned workstations and living quarters. Personal items remained, cups half filled with desiccated liquid, clothing draped over chairs, family photos still displayed on desks. They had left in a hurry. They left in a hurry, Alixa observed, trailing her gloved fingers over a desk where a meal had been abandoned mid-bite. Not uncommon when funding gets cut, Emma said, though something about the scene made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. Corporate science can be ruthless. The central lab was sealed, requiring Emma to override the security with a device from her belt. The door hissed open reluctantly, revealing a large circular room filled with sophisticated equipment. The data core should be in the central processing unit, Emma said, moving toward a cylindrical structure in the middle of the room. Keep watch while I extract it. Alixa nodded, moving to the doorway as Emma worked on the central unit. She removed a panel and carefully disconnected a glowing cube about the size of her palm. Got it, she announced, securing the cube in a specialized container at her belt. A distant crash interrupted her, followed by the unmistakable sound of a bulkhead door closing. What was that? Alixa asked, tensing. We're not alone, Emma replied grimly, drawing her pulse rifle. Change of plans. We move fast. Straight back to the ship. They hurried through the corridors, Emma taking point with her weapon ready. As they approached the junction, movement caught her eye, a shadowy figure darting across their path. Down, she shouted, pulling Alixa behind a support column as energy bolts sizzled through the air where they had been standing. Pirates, Emma hissed, returning fire. They strip abandoned stations for tech and materials. What do we do? Alixa asked, her voice steady despite the danger. We need to reach the ship, Emma replied, checking her scanner. But they're between us and the docking bay. More energy bolts struck near them, forcing them deeper into cover. Emma assessed their options quickly. "There's a maintenance shaft 2 corridors back," she said. "It should bypass the main corridor and get us closer to the docking bay." "Ready?" Emma asked. Elixa nodded, her eyes determined behind her helmet visor. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. They sprinted back the way they'd come, Emma firing suppressing shots to cover their retreat. They found the maintenance access and squeezed inside, crawling through the narrow space. "You're handling this well," Emma remarked as they navigated the dusty shaft. "On Proxima, we have a saying," Elixa replied, her voice surprisingly calm. "The flame that burns brightest is forged in danger." Emma smiled despite the situation. "I'm starting to think I got the better end of our accidental marriage." They emerged near the docking bay, but 3 armed figures stood between them and the Nomad. Emma assessed the situation, formulating a plan. "I'll draw their fire," she whispered. "When they're distracted, make a run for the ship and start the engines." "I'm not leaving you," Elixa protested. "You're not. You're helping me escape," Emma countered. "I'll be right behind you." Before Elixa could argue further, Emma leapt from cover, firing a barrage that sent the pirates diving for protection. "Now," she shouted. Elixa sprinted across the open space, surprisingly fast in the environmental suit. One pirate noticed and took aim, but Emma's shot caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. Reaching the Nomad, Elixa slapped the entry panel and disappeared inside. Emma continued firing, gradually backing toward the ship while keeping the pirates pinned down. Just as she reached the ramp, a bolt grazed her leg, sending pain shooting up her thigh. She stumbled but managed to get inside, hitting the control to close the hatch. "Emma!" Elixa cried, seeing her collapse against the bulkhead. "I'm okay," Emma grunted, though the burn on her leg suggested otherwise. "Get us out of here." To her surprise, Elixa moved confidently to the pilot's seat, her hands flying over the controls with unexpected skill. The engines roared to life, and the ship disengaged from the docking clamps with a jolt. "How did you?" Emma began, wincing as she pulled herself into the co-pilot's seat. "I was watching you very carefully earlier," Elixa replied, her focus intense as she guided the ship away from the station. Proximans have excellent memory for patterns. As they accelerated away, energy bolts from the station's defensive weapon streaked past them, but Elixa executed a series of evasive maneuvers that would have made a veteran pilot proud. Once they were safely out of range, Emma stared at her in amazement. "You're full of surprises, Mrs. Blackwell." Elixa's answering smile was both shy and proud. "As are you, Mr. Blackwell. Now, let me tend to that wound." As Elixa helped Emma remove her helmet, their faces close in the confined space, Emma realized that what had begun as an obligation was rapidly becoming something she wasn't ready to give up. In the Nomad's small medical bay, Elixa carefully cut away the fabric of Emma's environmental suit around her injured thigh. The energy bolt had left an angry red burn about 4 inches long, painful but not life-threatening. "You're lucky," Elixa said softly as she examined the wound. "A few inches higher, and we'd be having a very different conversation." Emma managed a pained smile. "Wouldn't be the first time I've danced with death." "Is that supposed to impress me?" Elixa asked, raising an eyebrow as she applied a cooling gel to the burn. "Because it doesn't. It worries me." The simple admission caught Emma off guard. She watched as Elixa worked, her scarlet fingers moving with surprising dexterity as she dressed the wound. The ship hummed around them, safely in hyperspace on their way back to Proxima 3. "Where did you learn to fly like that?" Emma asked, partly to distract herself from the pain, partly out of genuine curiosity. Elixa's hands paused momentarily. "I told you, I've never left the system. Not that I never dreamed of it." She secured the bandage and met Emma's eyes. "Uncle Krell has an old flight simulator in the back of the outpost. I've logged thousands of hours on it when business was slow." "You never mentioned that." You never asked. Her tone wasn't accusatory, just matter of fact. There's a lot we don't know about each other, despite being married. Emma felt a twinge that had nothing to do with her injury. Elixa was right, for all their physical intimacy, there were vast territories of each other's lives they hadn't explored. Tell me something I don't know about you, Emma said, catching Elixa's hand as she finished with the bandage. Elixa seemed surprised by the request. She sat on the edge of the medical cot, considering. My parents were explorers, she finally said. They mapped uncharted regions of our system for the Proximan Science Guild. Their ship was lost in the asteroid belt when I was 14. Uncle Krell took me in. I'm sorry, Emma said softly. It was a long time ago. Elixa traced a pattern on Emma's palm with her finger. But that's why I've always wanted to see the stars, to finish what they started. The revelation settled between them, a piece of herself offered freely. Emma felt compelled to reciprocate. I joined the Alliance Marines to escape a mining colony in the Arcturus system. My father worked himself to death in those mines. I swore I'd never follow him. Is that why you became a bounty hunter? For the freedom, Emma nodded. Credits, adventure, the usual reasons. She paused, then added, and because I'm good at it. There's satisfaction in being good at something, even if it's dangerous. Like flying a ship during a pirate attack. Elixa's lips curved in a small smile. Exactly like that. Emma returned her smile, then winced as he shifted his position. Though I think I prefer your skills as a medic right now. Elixa helped Emma stand, supporting his weight as they made their way to the captain's quarters. Once there, she eased him onto the bed and began removing the rest of his environmental suit. You know, Emma said as she worked, when I cut those bracelets off, I thought I was setting you free. Turns out maybe I was setting myself free too. Elixa looked up, her hands stilling on his chest. What do you mean? I've been alone for a long time, Emma admitted, moving from job to job, planet to planet, never staying anywhere long enough to form connections. But these past days with you, she struggled to find the right words. It's been different. Different good or different bad?